At the beginning of our movie, we see Peiqiang Liu sitting with his son Kai Liu, and he's showing him the planet Jupiter through a telescope, and he tells him that there might be a day that Kai Liu might be able to see Jupiter without using a telescope. And in their time, the Earth has become a very extreme place to live in. I'm talking extreme weather conditions, environmental disasters that happen frequently. And at first, everybody didn't really think much of it, but scientists finally figured out that the sun is unstable and that in 100 years, the sun will explode and engulf the Earth fully. And the United Earth Government, the UEG, decided to leave the solar system and go to another sun 4.2 light years away. And they built about 10,000 Earth engines on the planet's surface to propel the Earth out of the solar system. And astronauts from all around the world will be sent to the internal space station to navigate the Earth, and the space station will travel with a relative position of 100,000 kilometers from Earth. And worldwide sea level will rise 300 meters in 10 years' time, so the UEG constructed an underground city beneath the Earth's engines until Earth arrives to its new star. These cities will be the only refuge for mankind. And only half of the world's population has made it this far, and the other half has died off because the Earth's surface has become incredibly hot and uninhabitable. And the people that now live in these underground cities are like half the Earth's population. And Peiqiang Liu is one of the astronauts that will be leaving for the space station, and he promises his son that he will be back once they reach Jupiter, and Earth will need Jupiter's gravitational pull to use as a propelling power to leave the solar system. And Peiqiang Liu leaves his son Kai Liu with his father and leaves to the space station. In present day, it's been 17 years since the project called Wandering Earth has started, and says Peiqiang Liu left for the space station. And today is his last day in duty, and he'll be returning home to finally see his son. And the project till now has been a success, and the space station have reached Jupiter. And back on Earth, Kai Liu is now a trainee transport driver, and he also has an adopted sister called Dodo. And she is 16 years old, and she became his sister after his grandfather saved her a few years ago. And Kai Liu promised to take his sister outside today, so he takes her out of school after turning off the power and sneaking her out of class early. And then he fakes his grandfather's driver's license, and he stops at a shop and then gets a copy of his grandfather's ID and adds his own picture on it to make it seem like it's his. But even though he can pay for what he just did, he just runs out of the store without actually paying. And the people at the store actually chase him and his sister, but they manage to escape to the hub. And there, Kai scans his new ID and is accepted, and they wear their protective suits and helmet, and they go out to the surface. And the Earth's surface has become a snowstorm, and the only people operating outside are people assigned to look after the engines and people who work on it. The engines being the 10,000 engines that they're gonna use to propel themselves out of the solar system. Those engines. And Kai, after scanning his ID, goes to his grandfather's massive transport truck, even though he's still a trainee driver. And he still can't drive properly, and Dodo makes fun of him because of that. And Kai tells her that he's a genius for even starting the car. And before they go long, they get stopped by the police and they get sent to prison. And they meet another guy there while waiting for their grandfather to come pick them up. And their grandfather gets there shortly, and he begs the police chief to let them go. And he also tries to bribe him, which was a very horrible idea because he also ends up in jail for that. And back at the space station, the computer AI, Moss, who is tasked with calculating and helping the UEG, sends an alarming message. It informs the astronauts and the UEG that Jupiter's gravity have spiked and that Earth is off by about 9.3 degrees. And it tells them that Jupiter is actually sucking the atmosphere of Earth, and that more than 3,000 of Earth's engines are offline at the moment, and they need a light core replacement. And if this issue doesn't get fixed right away, Earth will collide with Jupiter in about 37 hours, and all life on Earth will be lost. And back on Earth, they start having these big-ass earthquakes, and buildings start falling apart, and Kai and his family try to escape the prison. And their door breaks down, and they go out, and they also save the guy that they met in prison, because he was pretty cool. And they also take a truck and they leave the station. And the UGE is trying to contact all the workers to fix the failed Earth engines. And Kai and his family encounter one of the rescue units, and their truck has been destroyed, and now they need a new truck to go change the engine. And so, Kai's grandfather invites them, and they start going to Shanghai to replace the light core. And Kai and the crew reach the old city of Shanghai, and they see the old frozen and destroyed skyscrapers. And his grandfather tells him that he used to live here when the Earth's surface was habitable, and while driving through the city, the buildings collapse and destroy their truck. And all of them are safe, but now they have to go on foot and fix the light's core. And to do that, they get into one of the skyscrapers to find a better way. And while climbing up, another earthquake hits, and Kai's grandfather falls down in an elevator line, and Kai tries to save him, but the crew leader pulls him out of the building before it collapses fully, and Kai's grandfather dies in the building. And Kai didn't really appreciate this because he really thought he can save his grandfather, and he tries to fight the crew leader, but he gets easily overpowered. He then leaves with his sister and their friend from the prison, and the crew gives them supplies so that Kai can help them get back home. And back at the space station, Moss instructs Peiqiang to go back into his pod to hibernate. And he tells him this because they need to save energy. And Peiqiang asks to call his son one more time, but Moss tells him that he can't locate his son and connection with Earth has been severed. And Moss tries to force Peiqiang to go back to sleep, but Peiqiang thinks that Moss is malfunctioning and he wants to go to the main controls. And Moss refuses to give access to Peiqiang, so Peiqiang breaks his pod, and Lieutenant Makarov gets woken up by Moss because he thinks he's gonna stop Peiqiang. But Makarov and Peiqiang were buddies, and Makarov just helps him. And they open the main station's doors and they go outside to the main server. And while trying to get there, Makarov gets hit by a moving object and his helmet cracks, and before he dies, he pushes Peiqiang to the server door. And Peiqiang gets to the door and he checks the server where a new protocol has started. And Moss tells him that it's calculated everything, and that there's no way that Earth will survive, and that Project Helios has been activated. And this Project Helios is designed to be a failsafe by the UEG that if Earth couldn't make it, then 300,000 human embryos and 100 million plant and animal species genetic material will be shipped through the space station to find another habitable planet for life to continue on. And back on Earth, Kai and his sister and their new friend find a new intact transport truck, and they go inside and they see a few people there, and they tell them that their driver has died, and they have a backup light core that should be sent to Shanghai. And Kai agrees to drive, and on their way they find the old crew, and he asks them to join him, and they all go to the Earth's engine. And they get there with 1 hour left, and Kai and the crew arrive to the engine, and they were the last ones to leave and activate the engine. And all the engines go back online and communications are restored, and Moss calculates and releases a global broadcast. And after his calculations, he tells the world that Jupiter's gravity is too strong and that people will not survive this in any way. And everybody starts to freak out because of this, and chaos ensues on Earth. And at this point, Kai and his crew has reached the dark side of the Earth, and they can see Jupiter with their own eyes, and they can see it sucking the Earth's atmosphere. And while everyone has given up, Kai remembers a fact that his father told him when he was a kid. He remembers that Jupiter is mostly a hydrogen cloud, and that hydrogen can be used as fuel. And Kai asks one of the engineers with him if they can ignite Jupiter with Earth's oxygen to create a blast that pushes Earth away from Jupiter. And the engineer tells him that the only way to do that would be to use the Earth's engine and direct their power and send it to Jupiter. And Kai calls his dad and tells him his plan, but Moss calculates everything, and he tells him that there is no way that there could be enough energy from the engines to create that blast that they want. But Kai doesn't listen to this, and he rushes to the engine's core to hack and divert it to Jupiter. And the other team does the same thing too. But everyone else has left to spend their last moments with their family, and Peiqiang asks Moss to connect him to UEG, and he tells them of Kai's new plan. But Moss refuses to cooperate and says it will continue with the Project Helios. And Peiqiang then pours the alcohol that he had with him and melts down his servers. And after telling the UGE about his new plan, the UGE tell him that all hope is lost and that he should continue with Project Helios. And he begs them to give him a global broadcast, and the UEG agree to that. And when Kai and the crew get the global broadcast, his sister Dodo is the one that starts speaking, and she gives this very emotional speech about hope to the whole world and tells them about their new plan. And this actually works, and everybody who was leaving to their house start coming back to work on the engines, and they start turning the Earth's engine to Jupiter. And they only have about 30 minutes left to do it, and everyone in the world cooperates, and they send all the energy to Jupiter's atmosphere. And even with all the energy that went from Earth to Jupiter, they see that it's at least 5,000 kilometers short of hitting Jupiter's atmosphere. And here they finally realize that their last idea has pretty much failed. And back at the space station, Peiqiang comes up with another idea, and he calls the UEG, and he tells them that the space station has enough fuel to complete the blast. And the UEG tell him that the space station is actually the last hope for humanity, because if everything fails, Project Helios has to be done. And Peiqiang argues that there aren't going to be any humans left without Earth, or the people on it. And the UEG then agree to his plan and tell him that they trust him and that they hope he succeeds. And Kai is hearing all of this and he starts crying. And he's crying because he knows that somebody has to drive the ship and that his dad is going to be that someone and he's gonna sacrifice himself. And he begs him not to do it and that he can't break his promise that he told him that he'd come back to Earth. But Peiqiang tells Kai that this is the greatest mission and that his son will always see him when he looks up at the stars. And so, Peiqiang releases all the load from the space station and he drives the engine to Jupiter and he tells his son that he loves him and he sacrifices himself for the sake of the planet. And after he did that, Jupiter's atmosphere finally ignites and the blast starts coming to Earth to push it out of the gravitational pull. And everybody gets told to get underground within 7 minutes before the flame hits the surface. And everyone runs back inside to the underground cities, and fire rains from the sky and a huge blast comes from an explosion and it pushes Earth from Jupiter's gravitational pull, and the Earth is finally saved. And then, 3 years later, we see Kai has become a full transport driver and he takes his sister with him, who still makes fun of his driving because he still keeps bumping into other cars. And this is how the movie ends. A happy ending for a really great sci-fi movie. I hope you guys enjoyed our recap. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment. I promise to reply to each and every one. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.